Welcome back to part 2 of this topic. We will pick up where we left off. Let's get started.
Yeah, and I'll point out too when Thomas says that it doing those flashy, entertaining things actually hurt learning. It actually bears out in research, and the litmus test for this is what we're putting out there connected to our learning outcomes and our goals and the learner personas, etc. But if we're just throwing something out there that isn't relevant, then we are adding to that cognitive load. And that's one of the things that's fun for us is to put a bunch of stuff, complex things together in a way that isn't creating overwhelming the cognitive load, right? That it's actually feels like it's the same thing. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. But, I know you and I were talking a little bit about this and you had some insights into where cognitive load issues happen. So can you share some of those and then talk about on the actual learning outcomes? What was the impact that cognitive load, overwhelming cognitive load, had on those?
So I have tons of horror stories, but the very first one that comes to mind is earlier this year, I was working with a client, and they required certain training for their contractors and so on from like a security perspective. And one of the things that they had a mandatory training around, cybersecurity and best practices around phishing and spear phishing and stuff like that. And I spent an hour literally watching videos of a friendly dude in like a flannel out in the woods, and he's like a cybersecurity expert. There's this music in the background. They got funny little sound effects. They got they're really talking about fishing and spear fishing, and every time they would bring up the word fishing, they would have a fish poke its head out from behind a tree and make a weird sound effect. And I spent an hour on that. The only thing I remember about that training is the videos and the interactions and the weird little jokes with the characters and stuff like that. In other instances where, like back in my corporate days and operations, I visited a lot of sites and I saw a lot of locally created content where they're saying training isn't enough. And so they go and present with these guides that are filled with pictures of kittens and rainbows and scenes from movies that had nothing to do with what they should be learning. And then even sometimes observing some training classes where they have music playing. Like they've got a smart device that's playing music when people are supposed to be focusing on e-learning or whatever. Those are definitely some areas that are not positive. But other aspects of or extraneous cognitive load that some people don't think about is it takes an extreme amount of cognitive load to process high definition. Your brain is we all have high def TVs. We all love that stuff. How many times have you been watching an interview with someone and you see they've got a zit, or and you're focused on that and not what they're saying? Yeah. Or your brain is processing every little bit of definition that's going on. And even in PowerPoint slides, one of the first things is, hey, choose your template. And you see all these lovely templates with swooshes and colors and stuff like that. In my learning and in my background, when I was working in the corporate realm, I stripped all that down. It was a white background, black text. It was vector art or avatars, very low definition. But it still presented the same thing. It was presenting a customer, it was presenting an employee or whatever, but it was, a lower definition avatar. I never did screenshots of things or videos unless it was short and very targeted and absolutely necessary in transferring the behavior. They're looking at a software tool, they're clicking this. but I never used videos of like people talking and discussing things. If I did that, even with those, I would use cartoon animation types of things with lower graphics, with some of that, and making sure that it was targeted to that learning experience, removing as much stuff around the area. And then, that's the learning part that you definitely have control over. The other part is, and I think this is where there's still ways to focus on this and to help improve it, like providing suggestions. But the other one is the actual learning environment itself. So, like, if you're in a classroom, it should be quiet. It should be very targeted to what's going on. There shouldn't be, soft moods going on in the background, or some type of, country music or what. Like, there shouldn't be music in the background. It should be, as quiet as possible. And if you're dealing with like a remote situation or, virtual learning, definitely pushing to have a quiet, secluded area that is free of distractions, because that's definitely extraneous cognitive load. Your dog barking in the background is totally going to derail your learning process.
At Legacy Learning Consulting, we are radicals about using your organizational learning strategy to transform and grow your business. We focus on outcome-based strategies tailored to achieve your business goals. To get results, learners need to shift behaviors. Using learning research and our years of experience, we create and implement learning experiences that shift behaviors toward your organizational goals. Since your business is unique, your learning strategy should match your company's unique DNA. We get under the hood to understand your business needs and your learners, and then develop learning solutions that target your unique needs. We focus on creating tailored learning experiences that don't just teach, they shift behaviors and create measurable impact. Through immersive scenarios and interactive experiences, we bridge the gap between knowledge and action. Our solutions help learners apply what they've learned in practical ways that drive change where it matters most, on the job. With Legacy Learning Consulting, learning isn't just a box to check. It's a strategic investment in lasting behavioral change that directly impacts your organization's success. Ready to make the most out of your learning investment and get real, measurable results? Contact Legacy Learning Consulting today, and let's design a solution that transforms behaviors and drives success.
One of the reasons I love talking to you about this stuff, Thomas, is that, when you're talking, I hear all the research pieces. Like, I know what you're referencing, right? And so I just want everybody to know this isn't just Thomas's opinion. The stuff bears out in research. But for whatever reason, as a learning development field, we don't do that. And there's a lot, we've talked about this on some other podcasts. There's a lot of reasons, a lot of influences that impact what you actually produce, no matter what you believe as an instructional designer or a learning experience engineer or PowerPoint developer, whatever it is. But, some of the things, like, there is research that shows white background and content helps the learning. And I think I never really saw it through the lens of the cognitive load. But if you think about cognitive load, it's like literally every stimulus has the potential, is adding to cognitive load. And every one of them has the potential to take away from the only stimulus that we want, which is anything that's going to trigger the learning behavior.
Yep.
Everything else we could get wrong. And even I think you've probably done it. We all do it where we just get it wrong because it's such a learning is such a dynamic, but natural experience. Right. And it's one of the things that it's why I love what we do, because there is nothing more human than to learn.
Yep.
It's what combines every human being on the face of this planet, is we have all learned and will continue to learn until the day we die.
Yep.
And so the things that Thomas just said, like, there's probably 5 of them I wanted to talk about where we don't have the time for it. The research that you're talking about helps to minimize cognitive load, but more importantly, it helps people learn, and we're not making learning unfun. We're cleaning it out so that people can actually learn. And so where I want to end our conversation is, what do we do? So, like, if we're aware that, hey, cognitive load is a thing, and literally every stimulus that I create and put in front of a learner, in addition to the ones that they probably have in their own head, how do we as learning experience engineers remove or limit the negative impacts of cognitive load?
I think upfront, like even pretty much from the design phase to the output and the implementation, you should, like, there should always be, like, anytime I create training or I create a design and then develop the training, I'm always kind of going through a checklist of like, okay, do the outcomes, do the lessons match the outcomes? Are we, is the assessment adequately gauging the lessons and the outcomes and the behaviors that we're focusing on? But also, it is everything, like anytime you go to make a decision to put any type of media on your content, ask yourself, is this going to positively impact the training? Is there anything in this that's going to overload it, or can I strip this down? What is the simplest, cleanest, lowest definition possible to be able to still have that outcome? And then there was I had another thought and I lost it. And then another thing that it kind of goes with cognitive load, and I think this is probably, this could go specifically to, it's a regional aspect, but also like thinking about your script and the stuff that you're saying. Is it plain? Is it relevant? Is it not colloquial? So like, as you shared earlier, like I was responsible for global training. I always had to scrutinize all the text and go, is someone in Germany and Japan going to understand this idiom that we put in here, and how can we, and because again, like people kind of going back to people trying to make it entertaining and fun, making sure that what they're writing is straight and to the point, and they're not trying to make a joke or something like that, because that joke may actually, again, derail the learning, or it may not, like it may just confuse the learner in the long run.
One of the things that we've only done a podcast on this before, where we think about when we're designing learning experiences, is this concept of decoherence. And this goes along with cognitive load. It's this idea that the brain is constantly trying to make sense of the world around it. Mm-hmm. And so when you're a learning experience, you're the first thing you're asking is, why is the experience that I'm engaging in? So if it's a live session or e-learning, why am I doing the things that I'm doing right here? And it better connect to the ultimate outcomes. And honestly, if I could say that's what most call them instructional designers, because they're not really building a learning experience, is the biggest mistake they make is that they put things in the learning experience have nothing to do with the outcomes. And your learner, or you take too long to help make that connection. And so your learners are constantly just cycling through trying to figure it out. And, add cognitive load into that, and it makes it even worse.
It's almost like having to explain a joke.
Yeah, great point. Yeah. That's a great way to think about what we do, Thomas, is we make sense out of whatever the learning experience is. And if you're doing it right, you're not going to say, hey, see what I did there?
Yep.
Right. And we actually just in a previous podcast, we talked about fun, and learning is naturally fun. So I don't think we need to be really intentional about adding fun. We need to be intentional about not removing the fun. But if you are going to do fun, totally okay, but just be really thoughtful about why you're doing it. Don't lean on the side of fun, lean on the side of learning, and figure out where you can have fun in there. My learning experiences when I'm in person are a ton of fun, because we're literally just, whatever we're doing, we're building on concepts or ideas, we're laughing, we're having a good time, but it's all related to learning. Yep. So I think that's the trick is, let's not make it unfun. Learning is a ton of fun, and people do it naturally. When I have this conversation with people about learning being fun, they might say, oh, no, it's not. Well, yeah, it is. Let me think about something that you were passionate about. How'd you learn that? Well, I went out and tinkered. Yeah, you had fun.
Yep.
And then you get into these things that you have to learn, and you're paying money to go to a learning experience, and then it's not fun. That makes no sense. It should be fun. So.
Yep, exactly.
So I think that is our time, Thomas, and I really appreciate you joining us for this conversation. I know that you and I have a lot of offline conversations, and there's a lot more we could have, so we'll likely have you back. But genuinely want to say thank you for your time and for your insights today.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. I'd love to come back.